So let's talk about the army, because this is really, the tool that Genghis uses to, take over this entire region. And it wasn't just powerful, it was revolutionary. And at its heart stood the mounted archer. Now, this was a warrior who could hit targets with deadly precision while riding full speed on horseback. And these horsemen could fire behind them, mid-gallop. They could reload without slowing down. They could travel 50 to 60 miles a day with the ability to push up to even 80 or 100 miles in super urgent situations. And each soldier owned several horses and switched between them to keep each animal fresh. And this mobility made a lot of, traditional defenses like walls or slow-moving infantry on foot and heavy armor, basically useless. That you just had this is like the F-15 of the time. You had a skilled archer on horseback that could just fly past you, bang, arrow to the head, boom, you're done. And the Mongols didn't just rely on speed. They obviously had that, but they also mastered a ton of strategy and deception. One of their favorite tricks was the feigned retreat. And it's basically what it sounds like. They would pretend to flee the enemy so that the enemy would then chase him, only to be led into an ambush where fresh Mongol troops surrounded and then wiped them out. It's actually not that different from Hannibal. We did an episode on Hannibal Barca that would kind of do that same sort of encapsulation, like half crescent, where, part of the team would kind of retreat, they would force them in, and then they would get surrounded on all sides. Now, their communication system was just as impressive. They would use flags and drums and whistles to send instant commands. So beyond the battlefield, Genghis Khan built what they called a yam. And this was a massive relay network of stations with fresh horses and riders ready to carry messages. And this system was really, really intelligent. I mean, it was kind of like the first intelligence system, you could say, that was going at this rate of speed. So basically, Genghis could get messages anywhere into the kingdom or into the world at that time. And he would get reports from hundreds of miles away and be able to adjust his strategy really quickly. Now, what made the Mongols ultimately unstoppable was their adaptability. When they first attacked the walled cities in China or Central Asia, their traditional hit and run cavalry tactics didn't really work in the same way. And instead of retreating, Genghis Khan hired engineers from the conquered land. So we're talking Chinese, Persians, a lot of Muslim specialists who built siege towers and catapults, and even early forms of gunpowder bombs. So this historian Timothy May pointed out that the Mongols became experts at this sort of blended advanced siege technology with this lightning fast cavalry. And because of that, they were able to break down walls and storm cities and just overwhelm any other force that they could, get to. And then there's the psychological component. And Genghis was a master at this. He was using fear as a weapon in a way that not many people had seen in this region. So Genghis Khan made the rules very simple. You can surrender and you will live, or you can resist and you will be destroyed. So when a city resisted, like Nishapur, the Mongols annihilated it so completely. Then, as the stories went, not even dogs or cats survived. Now, this may seem just completely unnecessarily brutal, but the brutality was deliberate by Genghis. This was a message to the rest of the world. After hearing what happened to those who defied the Khan, many cities just opened their gates without a fight, right? It wasn't this senseless violence. It was a calculated terror campaign that just saved time and men and resources. And before every campaign, Genghis Khan's armies knew exactly who they were up against. They had, merchants, spies, envoys would gather intel on enemy defenses and sort of the political situation and supply routes, and they knew which leaders were weak, which cities were wealthy, and how they could cut off food and water to ultimately starve out their enemies. And every campaign was a planned operation, not just this random raid. Behind every charge and every conquest was the bigger strategy designed to expand the Mongol power with precision. So by 1209, Genghis Khan had finally united the Mongol tribes under his rule, and his eyes now turned outward. His first target was the Western Xia kingdom, and what's now in northwest China. The Tangut rulers were controlling basically major trade routes and had heavily fortified cities. And this was a perfect challenge for Genghis Khan and his army, which, again, they excelled at open field battles, but had little experience with sieges of a city. At first, the Mongols really struggled. These stone walls and the gates really slowed down their momentum, But like I said, the adaptability is their superpower. They learned quickly, and by January 1210, the Xia emperor surrendered and agreed to become a Mongol vassal state and pay tribute to Genghis Khan. And it wasn't a complete conquest. The Western Xia remained kind of like this semi-independent state and would later rebel and force Genghis Khan to return and utterly destroy them in his final campaign years later. But we'll get to that. Next came the much stronger Jin dynasty in northern China, and this was a rich, organized empire with millions of people, powerful cities, and one of the most advanced bureaucracies in the world. The Jin were everything that the Mongols were not. They were settled down into one specific area, they were wealthy, they were making money from trade, they were heavily fortified, but Genghis Khan wasn't reckless. Starting in 1211, he fought really smart. He avoided any type of direct battle, but he would cut off food and supply lines, and he would pick off smaller cities one by one. So historian Morris Rasabi notes that Genghis showed a lot of patience for a Mongolian conqueror. He would wait months, sometimes even longer, to just wear down cities instead of just going in head first. And the strategy really paid off. By 1215, after a long, brutal siege, the Jin capital Zhongdu in modern-day Beijing fell to the Mongols. With northern China under his control, Genghis turned his attention west, and in 1218, a new enemy emerged. This is the Khwarizm Empire, and this was basically just like a massive realm spanning modern-day Iran, Afghanistan, and Central Asia. And the trouble started when the Shah of Khwarizm made a mistake. He executed Mongol envoys and merchants. So to Genghis, this wasn't just an insult, this was like sacrilegious. Killing envoys violated the sacred laws of the Tengri, the eternal blue sky, and the response was going to be total annihilation. In 1219, Genghis Khan led roughly 150 to 200,000 men west. I mean, think about that, a force of 200,000 men. And now this was smaller than the Shah's forces, but they were much more disciplined. So his strategy was masterful. Instead of one giant army just descending upon the Shah and his city, he split his troops into multiple divisions that attacked from different directions. While generals Jeb and Subutai led diversionary strikes, Genghis drove straight into the heart of the empire. And by 1220, the great city of Bukhara, which is in present-day Uzbekistan, had fallen. The Persian historian Juvayni described how Genghis Khan entered the city's grand mosque, stood before the terrified people, and declared, "I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." Whew. That is bars, unfortunately. I mean, pour one out for all the people over there, my bad, but also kind of bars. And then you have Samarkand, which is in modern-day Uzbekistan, another jewel of the Muslim world at the time. And they, once again, surrendered without much of a fight. The Khwarizm Empire didn't collapse in one epic battle. It crumbled piece by piece as the Mongols destroyed its major cities, and then its trade routes, and then its food supplies. And they just knew that anyone that resisted would face these unimaginable consequences. And then in modern-day Turkmenistan, at a town known as Merv, one of the largest cities on Earth at the time, the Mongols reportedly killed the entire population after a brief uprising. I mean, the entire thing, gone from Genghis Khan and his people. I mean, it's pretty brutal. Like I feel like in history we can kind of gloss over it, but like this is like. Yeah, I mean, this is proper. I shouldn't say proper. This is brutal genocide of just going through to city, be like, hey, if you resist us, we will destroy everything, every single thing that is living in this city. So at Nishapur, where Genghis Khan's son-in-law had been killed, the revenge was so total that, according to the chroniclers, once again, even the animals were slaughtered. They would find a rat and they would just kill it. They would find a cat, out of here. The historian Rashid al-Din wrote that pyramids of skulls were left behind as monuments to the Mongolian wrath. I mean, like, the level of brutality here, I don't even know if it can be really comprehended. I mean, the destruction across Central Asia was beyond belief, but it was calculated. Genghis Khan wanted every ruler to understand that if you resist me, your entire city, everything in it, is going to die. Or you could just surrender and you'll live. And it was terror used as strategy. It's shock and awe, right? And it sort of worked in a way. I mean, news of these Mongolian, brutalists was spreading so fast that many cities just surrendered off rip. Like even before they got there, they're like, hey, if the Mongols ever come, we're just giving it to them. And in a way, this saved a lot of lives in the process.